I How do I feel about returning to the MCU? I feel great about it. I mean, I love working with Marvel. I love Sharon Carter. And so coming back to play her has been amazing, especially getting to play this new version of Sharon, who I think is just awesome and kind of, you know, cynical, rough around the edges. Uh, yeah, it was cool that we actually get to see where she's been, what she's been up to, and always a blast.
It's such a surreal feeling being a part of the MCU. I don't feel like it's sunk in just yet. I don't know when it will sink in. But it's incredible. It's I feel so lucky to be a part of it. And it's been such a fun time as well.
It is such a privilege at this point in my career to be joining the MCU. I had no real sense, it never entered my mind that this was still a possibility for me. And so when it happened, I kind of couldn't believe my good luck. And it's been a joy to be a part of it, to be a part of the MCU, about which I really knew very little, except that everything I did was wildly popular and really beloved by critics and audiences both, and incorporated and used some of the actors that I really admired. So I am so grateful and delighted to finally be part of the MCU.
What was appealing about playing the character of Sarah Wilson is getting an opportunity to speak on some really important and pertinent issues that are happening in this country today to many people in such a personal, grounded, authentic way.
With Sharon, I think, we initially meet Sharon as this, wide-eyed, extremely loyal to Cap, young agent who's, full of integrity. I mean, that's sort of who she was in the comic books, and it was really fun to play that. And then I think, with all of the sacrifices that we see that she makes in Civil War, she has to go on the run, and then suddenly we just don't see her for several years. I don't think there was any way around it, but to really address the situation head on. And here we find her in Madripoor, and she's still a fugitive. She's been hustling, or dealing art, stolen art in this sort of pirate-like town. And it's just a very different version of Sharon than we've seen, and rightfully so. And for me, it was a lot of fun to play that. And I just really am glad that we got to explore that side of her, and that we didn't just sort of bring her back and everything's just like back to normal, because there's just no way that you can't address all of that time. So yeah, I loved playing this version of Sharon.
I think what I found appealing about playing Karli was that there's lots of layers to her, and she's not one dimensional. And I was excited to pick her apart and understand her more.
Sarah Wilson's backstory: she's in Louisiana with her two children, and she's running the family business. During the blip, obviously, her brother disappears, and she has to figure things out on her own, on top of everything that's happening as a result of the blip, and trying her best to keep things afloat. I think in conflict with wanting to keep the legacy going, but at a certain point, you get at your ropes end, and yeah, struggling, and just trying her best day to day with that, like many people have done and are doing now. And I think that's what's really appealing about the character of Sarah, and that I think feels really real to many people.
I was really intrigued by this character. I've played a lot of doctors, I've played therapists, and I mostly played very no nonsense, straightforward, very direct people, direct to a fault. So it felt very much in my wheelhouse. what I especially liked about this character as a therapist, though, was her background in the military. The fact that she was coming from a place of courage and strength, and she has the credibility of someone who has already experienced some of the sorts of things, obviously not exactly what Bucky's gone through, but some of the same losses and the same um, really horrific situations, and so she has a sense of what that is, and he can't say, well, you just don't know, because she does. So, in terms of being the type of person she is, forthcoming, bossy, I sort of live there. I do a fair amount of that, but having the nuance and having the sense of humor that she has, which it runs through all of the Marvel Universe shows, was really a treat for me.
It was very intense to prepare for these fight sequences, only because I was shooting 2 projects at the same time. And, with anything, for me anyway, I have to do it, at 1,000%. And so when I wasn't shooting, I was, stunt training as much as I possibly could. Also because, with these sequences with Sharon, she doesn't have any powers, I mean, it's all, me fighting essentially. And so yeah, we spent a lot of time, months, preparing and just figuring out what Sharon's fight style would be in this world of Madripoor, but also having had this technical, agent background and training in that sense. So it was just very, very cool to explore that. And the training was hard, but it's always rewarding when you put the time into something like that.
So Karli is an extremely determined and driven, passionate young woman, which I had the pleasure of playing. And during the blip, she was I think she was realizing that people had started to unite and come together a little bit more and work more as a unit rather than separately. And I think that's what she's trying to get back to.
Sarah and Sam's relationship, it's kind of like what is beautiful about having family members who will tell you the truth and will give you the truth, their truth, and in their truth and your own truth, and how sometimes that's conflicting. So there can be a little bit of tension, but there's love. It's steeped in love. So no matter what happens, love is at the bottom of it. And Sarah to Sam she's also the person's like, no matter how, like, literally how high you can fly, it's like she's the person like your family should be and can be, to like bring him back down to his roots, bring him back down to his foundation. Because again, it's that idea of, remember, where you come from and of whom you're from. And so she's a literal representation, a reminder of that, I feel like, to Sam.